After a long business trip away from your family, you try to turn on your car from the gas station just outside town when you realize that your engine sputters yet doesn't start. You know that traffic is heavy where you're going, so frustration ensues. When you feel something alarmingly different come over you, fear, and you turn about like an owl from left to right in a panic. And something's watching you, and you try even harder to get your vehicle to start. And without a second thought, a quick pump to the gas gets it started. You begin to drive when overhead you can hear the flap of wings and a loud screeching noise emitting from the beast above. You adjust your rearview mirror, and to your dismay, glaring crimson red eyes stare directly into your heart and soul. The winged creature looks like a man with wings that span great lengths beyond even the size of your vehicle. And after what seems like ages, you make it away from the creature as you park and get out to see if it's anywhere near you. It's gone for sure, and after pausing a moment to look right near the river, the silver bridge collapses in front of your very eyes. Your heart races as you feel sick to your stomach. If you had spent that 15 minutes driving, you too would have been devoured into the frozen waters below, and joining those in this horrific event. As you look out in the distance, the creature from earlier stands upon the broken bridge's standing pillars, looking out at the chaos. Without any words, you take off your hat and you put it to your chest. A silent thank you to the Mothman of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Hello everybody, welcome to the second episode of A Delve Deeper. I'm your host, Joey, and I'm here with my co-host, Nate.
That's me.
And I'm also joined by a friend of my other show, Ryan.
How's it going, everyone?
And this is a podcast where we dive into all things dark, paranormal, and cryptid. Each one with a story, an origin, reports, and more, leading us to a truth that may have been long forgotten, and I hope to make your skin crawl, your heart race, and your vision haze, as we attempt to take a delve deeper. And I'm just going to say after all that, thank you guys for coming in, and thank you guys for joining me today for today's episode. I'm very excited for the Mothman.
Oh yeah, super stoked about this one. There was just so much out there.
Oh yeah, I've been looking into it, and it's been pretty interesting to find.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't normally think. You're like, oh, Mothman has 3 or 4 stories. No, there's a lot, and as we'll get into today, there's even some that still occur today. So, with that, I do want to kind of go and let's just go right to the point here and just kind of talk about what the basis of this is. What happened? What is this whole thing about? So, the most infamous sighting of the Mothman was on December 15th, 1967, and this is when the locals said they saw the Mothman on top or flying over the Silver Bridge, which was a suspension bridge over the Ohio River that connects Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Ohio. And according to the lore, shortly after the creature was spotted on this bridge, it collapsed, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. And a whole investigation into the disaster found that a fracture in the suspension chain was the cause, which we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But one of the biggest things that I will say about the Mothman is that it is a humanoid creature with large wings, and just kind of getting into the initial description, they don't really ever describe it as a moth until later on, when they're like, oh, they kind of associate the red eyes, the big red eyes is the moth portion of it. Otherwise, people usually said that the wingspan was huge and that it was more bird-like than it was insectoid, but with lore reasons, we got to the point that we're in.
Right, I actually found out that they were describing it as 7 feet tall with an immense wingspan, so I just looked up kind of the science on it, and I found out for an average human male, just average height, to have wings and be able to fly, the wingspan would need to be between 6 to 7 meters, which is like 18 to 21 feet from end to end. And that's an average height guy. So Mothman is 7 feet tall, meaning his wingspan would have to be well over 20 feet, probably 25 to 30.
See, and like I've found some other interesting things that I'd love to get into more later once we've kind of heard a couple more stories about it. Like,
Awesome.
There's this one researcher named Robert L. Smith, I think that's the name. Yeah, Robert L. Smith, and he's put out some information about that, explaining what this could possibly be.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of what ifs and what could this be, because I will say Point Pleasant and where it's at in West Virginia does have a lot of interesting wildlife, which I know gets talked about sometimes. But yeah, so apart from all that, Mothman is a giant man hybrid moth person, and he's got a big old wingspan. And if you haven't played either Fallout 76, or maybe you've just done your little bit of research, maybe you watched the critically acclaimed film The Mothman Prophecies, which is still one of my top 10 movies of all time. Just because I love the Mothman, I love the story around it, and I think the Cryptid is super awesome. And the way they did the effects I thought was pretty nice for an older generation film. If you haven't seen Mothman, you are probably living under a rock, because he is goddamn everywhere. He's on merch, he's on pants. I own a t-shirt of the Mothman. You know, I've got all sorts of neat stuff that Mothman memorabilia. So I think I'm gonna kind of delve into the little town as of today. Point Pleasant, because of this, holds a Mothman festival every single year in September, which is so awesome, and I love that so much. And I hope to one day join them in the Mothman festivities.
Yes.
There's a Mothman museum and multiple Mothman, like, descriptive places. They have a Mothman inn. It's like a little hotel and motel. It's just Mothman themed, and then you go in, and that's where most people will stay in Point Pleasant for their stay. They have erected the giant statue that gets money shoved in its ass a lot. A lot.
Yeah.
Which is really funny. And the town, even the mayor has gone on record saying that they take that money and they put it towards their donations towards, I believe, like children's hospitals. So, yeah, if you put money in the Mothman's ass, you're donating yourself to charity. So thank you. Mothman thanks you.
He's
so caked up, it's hard to resist.
It is. It's hard, man.
The real Mothman is the one who helps the ones in need.
He's like the Robin Hood of the cryptids, man. But I think that's all
secretly
really.
Santa
I think
Claus
that's
and
all
Mothman
really interesting. That's why you don't see him. He's actually a
It is really
7-foot
interesting.
winged beast.
He actually uses like a silently propelled jetpack.
Ooh, hell yeah, jet propulsed Mothman. That's awesome. And okay, I do want to talk on this. This little point here. I know we just kind of got through the town. Like, the town hasn't really changed all too much from being small. It's still not very populated. Doesn't have a lot of people in it. The thing is that the tourism has brought the town back to life. Honestly, like it brings so much to their economy. It's insane. Kind of like the I can't remember what it was called. I can't remember, the goblins that are like the aliens, and they came down and these people shot up their house and stuff. Can't remember the exact case. Don't burn me in comments or anything for it, but I do remember it. But they also have a festival. Like, there's a ton of alien festivals and different things like that that kind of get held and save these towns from bankruptcy a lot of the times. So these cryptids do serve an interesting purpose outside of just the lore reasoning.
So yeah, I kind of wonder if maybe
it's...
like the whole thing with Mothman is that like they just wanted people to come into the town.
That's always a thought, definitely. But you were gonna say something, Nate?
I was just gonna say you're right. How like it's interesting how far this particular cryptid has like integrated itself into our society. Like before this, when I was doing research, I found out that not only is there a Mothman the Magic the Gathering card and deck built around said card, there is also Mothman like stat blocks for D&D.
Yep.
Like
I
it's
have
integrated its
looked
way even
into.
into the nerdy society.
Oh, everywhere! It's everywhere, man. It's insane. The
It's
pull
so
and reach
crazy.
that these cryptids do have. Like, one of the biggest things is their economic boom. For most of these cryptids, actually started back in 2016, and growing from the 2012 era, from the birth of like Slenderman and online horrors. So that's kind of where we get like a lot of the economic boom for these is from that. So which is really really interesting, and that brings a point to Ryan actually, where you're like kind of more like, oh, you know, like this could have been made up just to make some money, which is very 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 very. Sometimes I feel like that's true. In my own opinion, I am deathly afraid of water. For anybody that wants to send me something terrifying or like show me something, I hate water creatures, water monsters. I just don't like the sea. I don't like the endless darkness that it has and everything. Not cash money in my eyes. Worst nightmare would be to be stuck in the middle of the
Yeah.
ocean, and that would probably be it for me. But I actually agree with you, Ryan, on that front. At some point, we will be talking about Nessie, and I'll go more into my opinion on that. But it is heavily opinionated on me that is the whole reason that the town still functions with it, is that it's just not real.
Like they've dived so deep into it that they just
There's a
they can't
lot of
pull out
stuff.
now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of evidence that they have. Like the first ever documented picture from Nessie is like bullshit, and the guy on his deathbed was like, "That's fucking bullshit." Yeah, I made that out of like a pool buoy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like whatever, you know. But that back to the real meat and potatoes here, the Mothman. I do have some opinions on it. I do think that it's a very interesting cryptid, and it is definitely one of my favorites. Wendigo is number one. Mothman's like my number two spot. Number two. Because the Wendigo I think is just absolutely disgusting and ravenous, and like me and Nate talked about, it's inhuman in all nature, and that to me I think is what makes a great cryptid. But one of the
Skinwalkers are crazy.
yeah, the Skinwalker, we'll get to that one, don't you worry. We're gonna get to the Skinwalker, and of course, I live in Utah, so I actually have been around the Skinwalker Ranch and seen it with my own eyes, and it is fucking
Nice.
awesome. So we will definitely go over the Skinwalker at some point. One of the biggest things, though, with the Mothman that I do have to say is there is so many sightings of this thing, not just in Point Pleasant. So, the Mothman has been allegedly sighted at disastrous events such as that bridge collapse, with people claiming that they've seen it before during earthquakes, they've seen it in Japan during tsunamis, and they even saw it during the 9/11 terrorist attack. This leaves locals and storytellers split on whether Mothman is considered evil or just like a benevolent creature. So some say that the creature's bad luck or causes disaster in some ways, but others pretty much worship the Mothman stating that he may be able to see into the future and is giving warning of impending doom and to get out. This one I think is really interesting because it's people trying to, I guess, understand whether or not it's evil or it's good. Right, which I think the cryptid sides of things like the Wendigo, like we talked about, that's obviously evil, right? Like it's one of those things where you're eating a person, you're trying to kill people, transform them, do whatever. Like that's naturally evil. This one, in my opinion, I think is a real coin flip for me, because
it definitely feels more like it's
stories.
Neutral.
Yeah. Whether or not it's attracted to something, you know, I've heard tales of people saying that Mothman's like a soul sucker, and that's why he goes around there and he's sucking up all the souls. And I'm like, okay, you know, it's like
So
That's pretty.
So to hit on your point that brought this about, Joey, where they're blaming him or saying he's been seen around disasters, there actually claims to have seen him around Chernobyl even. The Blackbird of Chernobyl is what they were calling him, but some people say it's so similar to Mothman because it has the immense wingspan and the glowing red eyes. And I
well,
think
we
that
can
one
even
is
talk
crazy
about
because
the
that's all the way across the country or world.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like I said, even tsunamis over in Japan, like recent tsunamis they've had over the past decade or so, like they've said that Mothman's made an appearance. And one of the other things, one of the close related cryptids, which this is a shout out, just in case people don't know, any related cryptids I will shout out and kind of pull in here. But we probably won't do a whole episode on it just because it's so
Right.
similar, like Champy and Nessie, right? Like they're the same creature in different lakes, essentially. So we'll
Right, or
probably
the
touch
10
on
different
these.
variations of Sasquatch.
The Squatch, yeah. So we'll kind of touch
Yeah.
on them, but I don't think they deserve their own episode. So one of the biggest things is the Owl Man. There's an
Yep.
Owl Man that's around the stated cryptid, and it's just a copy paste of the Mothman, but they think it's an owl. That's it. That's all it is, and it does the same
That's the
thing.
only
Has
difference.
the same stories, but it's really interesting to see other parts of the world have similar stories.
Yeah, I'm really interested in like just learning more about any one of these ones that I don't know of just yet because there's just so many.
Well, I would like to ask you your opinion personally, Ryan, on what do you think of the Mothman and its whole legend and story?
See, before like I had any kind of like context of what Mothman was, like when I was just hearing like hearsay and all that when I was younger, like my initial thought was like if this thing is something that a lot of people have seen, I've wondered if like might be kind of like someone just like looking for something to blame for like a natural disaster. And as like we're a very big like Christian based country, I always imagine like maybe like they're like these sightings might be coming from someone who's thinking it might be kind of like an angel of death, something like that, you know. Then as like I started getting older and I started kind of like just dipping my toes into cryptid stuff, I started thinking like maybe like this might be some kind of like bird that people are mistaking for something else and because they're panicked.
Definitely something that I have thought on myself. I know that a lot of researchers on this specific case have done stuff with it, where there's a certain kind of bird, I believe, that resides near West Virginia in Point Pleasant.
Yeah,
that has a similar wingspan
Sandhill
to
crane.
what people are saying.
Yep, the sandhill crane. That's the one I was going to be talking about too.
And that's one of the biggest things that people are like, well, it's kind of crazy, you know, it's really fucking big, so people don't really know which one is which. But I could definitely see it. I could definitely see it. And it kind of started with the folklore right in 1966, just like a year before the, well, not even really a year, but sometime before the actual Silver Bridge collapse. Two couples were going away for a late night drive when they spotted a large flying man with 10-foot wings, and the gray creature's eyes glowed red when the headlights hit it, and they fled the scene in their car at incredibly fast speeds. And the couple said that the monster bird started chasing their car as they tried to get away, and within the next year of December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed, which was the main hotspot. But again, the crazy part about that for me is, like, I don't like to say this a lot, but when things happen at night, unfortunately, our eyesight just isn't what it usually is.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times, I do have more belief that the bird theory has some merit on that one. Like, if you saw a giant ass fucking bird in the middle of the street and like you like it runs in front of your car, right, and you almost hit it, You
Mm-hmm.
might think it's a dude and it's kind of gray, or it's like whatever. You might mistake feathers and sheen for like skin or something,
Right.
like at night if you ever see like a shiny bird or something, they kind of look like they got skin, but it's not really, it's feathers. But so I've seen stuff like that growing up here in Utah near like different varying little, I guess, like ponds and stuff. You see a lot of animals at night. I've seen a couple birds that get pretty big out here that genuinely look like they're creatures of the night. When you're there at midnight, you're kind of maybe a little tired after the day, stuff like that. Like a lot of that, I think, can contribute to psyche stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
As
I
someone who's
still
been in
do
the
believe
same
it.
vicinity as a cassowary, birds are have the potential to be monsters easy.
Oh, yeah.
Also,
Cassowaries
fun
are
fact:
their
sandhill
own.
cranes are diurnal, so sometimes they are active at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I mean, I don't know if any our watchers out there have seen a cassowary. I will never, ever, ever go towards that bird ever. That's disgusting. That thing looks evil and will definitely rip me apart.
They
Like
are
it
the
was
embodiment of evil.
dude. They're
It's got a
actual
dagger
living
on its foot.
dinosaurs. They're literally dinosaurs. I don't know what to tell you, but yeah,
Right.
no, I tend to think more on the side of the bird theory myself, but I do really like the idea of the Mothman. I like the idea that there's something that people can feel some odd comfort in. It's a lot of people's favorite cryptid. It's something that like people look forward to every year. It brings economy to this little town, and I think that's a great thing. Like I think what the Mothman is kind of, it's all right. It's a pretty cool cryptid. He's one of my favorites. I like the way he looks. I like the style. I like his function in media and stuff. It's super awesome. But at the same time, I also get a little like, there's some like, there's better described cryptids out there.
Yeah.
Just because they don't ever really tell you what it looks like or whatnot. I mean, we'll dive into some stories that I know you have, Nate, for sure. But
Yes.
it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. What's crazy is so after the 1967 Silver Bridge incident, like for 3 days, there were these FBI agents that were interrogating this guy, and they let him go because basically they had nothing on him. But that's not the only times that something like that has happened. I know that in doing my research, I was able to find that almost an exact same thing happened where these FBI agents interrogated this guy for like 3 days or something like that, because Mothman was reportedly spotted again in 2022 in the Rockford Canal. And at the same time, they found someone hanging out around there, and they interrogated him, asking him if he was trying to basically cave in the canal or whatever. And I'm like, why were they so insistent on something bad is going to happen here?
Well, that's something we'll definitely get into in a different episode as well. I definitely want to go into the Men in Black, which is something that we will see so frequently throughout these different cases, which is odd. It's odd enough to say, okay, cryptids are one thing, right? Like, I'll say this. Cryptids are one thing. They're stories. They're meant to scare kids. They're meant to kind of like, be a scary story for Halloween. They're meant to do all these different things. And it's a legend that turns into a story, right? It's a legend of a creature that nobody can find or nobody's found evidence of that turns into, a legend and a story. And sometimes those do turn into realistic things. Like, I know that there was a cat creature that was recently discovered was real in the cryptid community, and the little tribe that told the story over and over was like, my brother, we've been fucking telling you that this thing is real for close to like 100+ years. And they're like, well, our bad, guys. But it's like, so there's definitely points where it's like, I think it has its place, and I think it's interesting with the government's involvement and everything because usually they don't get involved in like stupid things, like little tiny things. Like if it's not interested in money or it's not something that's gonna financially boost them or hell even like protect the U.S. Like I'm sorry, I don't think Mothman is gonna be blowing up buildings or whatnot. Like I really don't. He hasn't. It's not something that he's known for. Mothman is not strapped. He is not carrying his 9mm on his hip. So I don't
Right.
find it. I think it's just so fucking weird that they have this interest in certain cryptids versus others, and we'll see it a lot in these alien stories that we're gonna cover alongside our paranormal stuff.
Yeah, I think like a
Yes.
lot of it's just
So I
like
was actually going to say.
paranoia, you know.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh no, sorry man, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just saying like I think like a lot of it, like especially like with the government involvement, is just like super paranoia because like you have day-to-day incidents happening, and then you've got like election stuff coming around. Like you want to make sure everything is as safe as possible. So even something like as small as Mothman, for them at least, like their paranoia is like we need to make sure everyone's safe, and if it means we got to investigate this small thing because someone's using a cryptid to hide some dastardly thing, like it's they got to be
That's
sure.
true. That's completely true. But I also am on the side of like, if you're at that point, you should probably send local law enforcement. They're more familiar with the area. The
Hmm.
locals are more likely to cooperate with you and corroborate, make sure they're good. So, I mean, unless obviously you're talking to an officer that is in on that project, which I highly doubt. A lot of these small towns don't have a lot of police force, and even with that, just sending out a small investigation, hey, I know that your local force has 30, 40 people in it. Could you send 10 out to do this investigation? Seems more likely to me than like an FBI investigation, especially if you're like having to send
Right.
people out there.
So yeah, the only reason the FBI even went there because of the Silver Bridge incident is because the bridge, I guess, like crossed lines, which made it a federal case. It like
Yeah,
crossed.
yeah.
I don't know if it was county line or state line, but it made it federal.
Yeah, that's an interesting part because one other part I did have on the bridge itself was due to the defective single link known as I-bar 330 on the north of the Ohio subsidiary chain. So it was on the Ohio side, not the West Virginia side. So the first link below the top of the Ohio tower, a small crack was formed through fretting wear at the bearing and grew through internal corrosion. And this problem is known as stress corrosion cracking. And this is what
Right.
is the primary cause of this. And the thing is that this is something that um, apparently used to happen a lot to older bridges. And at the time, this was an older bridge. And the thing is that they didn't really build them too safely because they just kind of used cheap materials. They didn't really, it's fucking 1960. Like the bridge wasn't built too long before that. So it was like, you got to think that the materials they had then versus the materials we have now are night and day difference. And our understanding of it is night and day difference. So for me, I also think that like the fact that it's like, its collapse was bound to happen,
Hmm.
right?
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
whether or not it's associated with the Mothman at this point, which is understandable, it's the whole cryptid thing. But the bridge itself, just on its own, like with or without the Mothman being there, I think corroborated a lot of interesting things because I think with the Mothman's appearance there, it really made something kind of crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it is crazy because Mothman is actually like has been linked to several other things that we're gonna talk about too. Like for instance, there was also a rash of UFO sightings in the fall of 1967, right around that TNT factory that's pretty close to Point Pleasant, and it was thought Mothman might have a lair there, and supposedly Men in Black were spotted after Mothman disappeared, and the only thing that ever happened is the police sealed the factory and the surrounding area. Another one he was linked to is in 1774, Shawnee Chief Cornstalk was murdered, basically, while on a peace mission to Fort Randolph. And so, as he was dying, he basically cursed the land and settlers, and some people think Mothman and the Silver Bridge tragedy were due to that curse. So it's crazy how much people are like linking Mothman to different things and could be the cause or at least the omen of different things, because everyone that's has these sightings too, like right before the disasters, are saying it's like he wants to be seen before the disaster almost.
Which I think brings another little tie-in to that. Like, is he evil? Is he good? Is he just trying to warn people? I think more likely for me, like the creature itself is just very alien in nature. So I think that the alien thing does make a little more sense than like, oh, there's a crash and there's this and that. Like, he doesn't look like a person, you know, like that's not like a person's qualities.
Right.
That's not what we know people to be. So the alien thing, I know that we're kind of diving into a little bit of theories, like the bird theory, kind of diving into the theory with the alien thing. I think it's really interesting, and I don't know how I quite feel about that. Mostly because I don't know, man. Like, Ryan, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't tend to be that conspiracy heavy when it comes to like alien stuff. I just don't. I don't feel it that way, you know. So it's like.
See, like, I want to, like, part of me wants to believe in the fact that something like this could be real, but honestly, like, just a lot of it is just, like, again, like, I keep coming back to it, like, paranoia of, like, people being concerned a little bit too much about something, and so they, you know, blame this fictional creature, and yeah, like, I think that's just what a lot of it is. Like, they want to find something to blame for bad things that are happening, and then one person says something, then the next person believes them, so they tell two more people, and then those people tell something because they heard from a friend that, you know, they saw this creature, and lo and behold, it happened to happen right around the time some unfortunate accident happened. But then, like, there's also, like, the stories of, like,
it's basically...
if this like creature is like an ill omen or some sort of warning sign, like that maybe if something was going to happen, it should have happened. But a lot of them, like, when I was researching this, like that one at the O'Hare airport that you were mentioning before, like, nothing's really happened as far as I can tell. Like, I kept diving into like O'Hare airport 2020, like Chicago area incidents 2021, just looking for any big thing that happened, and I couldn't find anything.
And that's the thing about that is the O'Hare report that I'm going to bring up here in a second that you're talking about was considered an alien encounter until they kind of put two and two together later on. So, I mean, but you were going to say something, Nate?
Oh, I was going to say kind of like what Ryan was saying. It feels like a more extreme version of The Devil Made Me Do It.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we were laughing about on the Wendigo too, is like, man has a dream, he wakes up and he's like, well, I guess I gotta kill and eat my family. That sucks.
Got no
like,
choice.
okay.
I dreamed it. It's law.
Like, it, you know, like, it just had to happen.
You know, he said it. I'm compelled through his will. And it's like, I'm compelled through his will. You know, he said it, popped in my head. He said it. I guess you gotta do it.
We've hear that kind of stuff happen like a lot today. Of like, oh, I've heard a voice in my head telling me to do it, and there's just
Which
There's a bit of a
even
mental
talked
health
about.
crisis.
We even talked about that, about how like the mental impact of like mental illness plus mass hysteria can usually equal some interesting combos. And we went
Yeah, I will
into
say I didn't come across any Mothman psychosis while I was doing
Mothman
this, but Wendigo
psychosis.
psychosis, there's a lot.
They just start flying. They're just like start. But yeah, let's talk about that airport, the O'Hare incident, which happened on October 19th, 2020, which was only 4 years ago. Not too far, but still a little ways. It said,
It
so
was
this
during
is a
the
quote.
pandemic.
Yeah, it was. It was height pretty much where we were getting to the point where we were out of fucking toilet paper and shit. People
I
were
knew it.
shitting and
Mothman was
throwing
warning us
rags
about the
and stuff.
toilet paper.
That was the connection, Ryan. I think you just put the strings together. He was warning us. Save your toilet paper, folks.
Mothman said so.
For Mothman.
Mothman needs it for his caked up cheeks, maybe. But
All those donations are for the fact that we didn't have toilet paper, so here you go.
but so one of those things. The quote was, she said, I had just left work at the USPS sorting facility at O'Hare Airport at around 11 p.m. on the Thursday of the 24th of September. And I was walking out of my car when I saw something standing at the far end of the parking lot, where I usually park. And at first I thought it was a very tall person with a long coat. And as I got closer to my car, I unlocked my car, which caused my headlights to come on. My headlights hit the person standing about 20 to 25 feet away from my car, causing it to turn and look right at me. I saw this was not some person, but some red-eyed creature, and what appeared to be a coat were actually wings, which spread out and as it turned to look at me. At first I thought it was some kind of very, very large bird, but I've never seen any bird that stood almost 7 feet tall. I'm 5'4", and this thing looked taller than me by at least 2 feet. This thing then started making some type of chirping sound, almost a half chirp, half click, like someone was clicking their tongue, but much, much faster. It then made some type of screeching sound and took off running toward me. It got within 10 feet of me and took off into the air and flew above me. I was
I don't mean to
screaming
interrupt, but
hysterically.
I
Go
think
ahead.
I can do that sound. I think I
Go
can do
ahead.
that sound. It says chirping sound, half chirp,
I've got
half
one
click,
too.
like someone was clicking their tongue, but much faster. So would it have been like?
See, or could it be more like this?
Maybe.
Oh yeah, probably that.
That one's that's I don't know. You see, for me, I'm like that. I hate to
You
bring
gotta try.
that back
You
up
gotta try.
full circle. Is okay. It's like I can't make this sound. I got a dry ass mouth from talking so much. But so I think it kind of goes back to the bird theory for me, because there is birds that make really weird sounds. Like
they're so fucking creepy sounding too sometimes. Like the shoehorn, I think is what it's called. The shoehorn.
Fuck that thing.
Oh yeah, the shoehorn
That thing
pelican.
is so.
Or shoebill.
Yeah, there you go. The shoebill. Like that thing, it
yeah.
sends chills up my spine when I hear it.
Well, it's the same thing as like you've heard, Nate. You've probably heard the cassowary if you've been close to it. It makes a horrifying noise, and I could, if that was in my room at night, I too would think that the Mothman was invading me for my toilet paper, for his chapped ass cheeks.
I just saw one the other day, and it was like this beautiful all black bird. I don't even know what kind of bird it was. I was just scrolling through my Facebook, and then they were like, "This is what it sounds like," and it's just screaming. It just sounds like a person screaming.
You're like, okay. But to end off this little quote, she said, I was screaming hysterically as I crouched down behind the car's open door, and I dived into my car head first. I was in a near panic as I tried to start my car, close and lock the doors, and turn on my interior lights. I started my car and took off of the parking lot and flew down the road till I hit the main road. I got home, told my husband, who also works at the same facility, and he was the one that told me the sightings of the thing. I was scared shitless and hope I never see it again. The thing is roaming around the area, scaring people half to death. I hope the airport people decide to do something about this someday. Which, first off, what the fuck do you want the airport to do about it?
Hit it with
sorry,
a plane.
hit it with a fucking plane, bro. Like I said, like I don't know, and that's the end of my research there. But that is such an interesting little story. I think it could go either way for me. I think the alien theory is really interesting because this wasn't technically a Mothman thing until it was like, oh, correlated the two. But it kind of sounds like if that was
Right.
like, let's just say that this thing is an alien for shits and giggles. This thing has been alive 60 years already, not even knowing how old it's been since it came here, right?
Mhm.
Right.
That is an awfully long time, and to think of that, and to think of us saying like, okay, we don't have evidence of this thing now, or whatever. And I know that we have like a lot of government classified stuff that's been coming out lately, and like with the Obama administration doing some stuff, with the Trump administration releasing some stuff. It's interesting, but a lot of it is just doesn't do anything. It doesn't. It's just all hearsay. It's he said, she said.
The
like,
government
entire
casually
way.
dropped aliens exist in the middle of the pandemic and nobody could care.
They did that during the pandemic. They recently released that we had like a protocol in the FBI and other branches of government for zombies. Like, I'm
Yep.
not even kidding. They had a protocol for that, and they just released it with a bunch of redacted information, of course. But they
Yeah.
released it. It was like, oh yeah, if redacted is infected with redacted, then you are supposed to kill redacted by, either severing the brain stem or blah 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 blah, because redacted is technically unable to be harmed by, bodily injury. Which you're like, motherfucker, you just drop zombies on me during like a fucking really really heavy time of disaster.
See, like,
zombies and aliens before GTA 6.
Zombalians.
Right? Like, the way, like, I kind of, like, see it is, like, it's better to be prepared and have nothing happen than not be prepared and then suddenly something that you never expected to happen happens.
My whole thing with that is, like,
Right.
why even say it? Why even bring it up? Like, the thing is, like, okay, let's just say, for whatever reason, like, the CDC, we know, has a plan for zombie outbreak. They have it on their website. Okay, and I know people get skeptical, and they're like, oh, what if it actually happened? What if they actually have a virus like that? Even if that was the case, one of the biggest tropes that I always say probably won't happen is that it's The Walking Dead. I do not believe that the person will be dead and risen from their grave. They're not going to be that because, one, for something to survive, it needs to be within a livable host, right? Like, even virus infections, stuff like that, they can grow in dead hosts and whatnot, but it's not, like, active. It doesn't have enough power to activate anything. So it's not going to, like, it's reanimating the brain, like in, like, even in The Walking Dead, the show and the book. Spoilers if you haven't seen it. Sorry, people out there. It's been well over for 4+ years now. If you didn't have a chance to watch it, I'm sorry. It's a space zombie virus. It comes from a space thing. That's where it comes from.
That sounds right.
And like, yeah, it's fiction. That's complete fiction, right? Like, this space thing has enough power to reanimate the dead. But in my personal opinion, I play Parasitic Paradigm, one of my own TTRPG that I've created for Patchwork Games. And Ryan, I am a firm believer that is how it would go. It would be parasites versus a virus or an illness. I think it would be a parasitic thing.
Yeah,
fungal, whatever.
I lean towards, like, like the way you handle it with the parasites and the way The Last of Us does with, like, the fungus. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
The evolution.
both of those just seem like very quote unquote viable, I guess.
It's an invasion of a host.
Well, there is a fungus that zombifies ants.
Oh yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it definitely does exist, and the thing, cordyceps.
Yep.
The interesting thing about it is that, like, for me, those sorts of things. I know we're getting on a tangent about not Mothman things, but I just find it very
Mothman's a
interesting
zombie.
to see this correlation between, like, aliens and the whole Mothman thing. because Mothman as an alien, I think makes more damn sense than just it's a random creature that's been here for years and eons and eons. Now, whether or not it's reproducing asexually, who knows? Maybe there's moth men, moth women, and they come together to make moth babies. I mean, if I was that
Mothlets.
caked up, I would try to get some Mothman cake myself. Um, can you blame a man for moth trying? I'm just saying. The rest of the stuff on him though is really really intriguing, and I mean, unless you have other stuff to say, I know Nate and Ryan, you had your own research.
Yeah, like unless like kind of like going off like the alien thing, just to tie that off. Like if I don't believe it could be an alien for the fact that like if it is an alien and it has the technology to go from one planet across the galaxy to another planet, why would they just have wings? Why not just do what I said earlier and like just have like a jet propulsion thing?
I don't know. Maybe on the planet there's just nothing there. Maybe there's no flooring. It's just like really tall rocks. He's got to fly between them to get to his moth babies, his moth GF, big titty moth GF.
Love.
I'm going to the grocery store. It's only 67 flaps east.
Damn. Like I said, man,
This is the 25 flap limit area, sir. You need to slow down.
Have you been? You need to get a DUI. DUF.
Yeah,
DUF. Driving under the
something.
Sir, have you been using lamps tonight?
No, you can't.
Sir, I can clearly see a lamp in your back seat. It is
this an extension?
The light is on.
No.
Is this an extension cord? Sir, you're aware artificial light is illegal, right?
Sir, you are carrying a portable generator.
No, I'm not.
No. Sandwich.
Eat it then.
Oh no. Oh, and that's the sound the dude heard. That was the sound.
I choked on my water. Choked on my water.
Oh, that's great.
Damn it, we'll do it live.
Stop saying, dude.
So, the only thing I have left, we touched on it a little bit, but I'm about to do some name dropping. Again, this was in 1967, so they're probably dead now. But the two FBI agents that were there investigating the Silver Bridge were Agent Tom Williams and Agent Carl Montgomery. And the dude that they were investigating was Roy Kirby. And he supposedly, to this day, has some of the most clearest footage ever taken of Mothman. And I've seen it, and it was not very clear. But it was 1967, so, like, yeah.
Not a lot of things were clear. We were still under the impression babies didn't feel pain. So
yeah.
We did not
that was
advance.
a thing?
Yeah, that's a true thing.
Yeah,
is babies that a lot of people didn't think babies felt pain until like I'm gonna have to look this up, but continue.
Chainsaws were first invented to aid in childbirth. That's a thing.
I do remember that.
Yeah,
fact, I never thought I'd learn.
We didn't learn that babies felt pain until the mid 1980s.
Damn.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was 40 years ago, people. So remember that. Don't trust your doctors. No, just kidding. Please do. Please do. Take your meds.
Don't try.
But
Big Pharma.
Yeah, man. I mean that report is one of those things that I actually got sent in from the Mothman Museum. It was really interesting. It's kind of a know-nothing report, though. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of information on it. And pretty much they just...
because dude was just like, I don't know, for like 3 days. He's just like, I don't know.
The interesting part from this, though, is that they did have some polygraph stuff available at this time. They did have him take a polygraph, and when he stated all the stuff that he did, that he was like, "Hi, I have no idea what's going on." He passed it with flying colors. And then on top of it, they had all this other stuff that was like, hey, this is like, after interrogating the guy over and over and over, they put recording devices in there and just like got him to talk a little bit to himself or to somebody else, like a lawyer or something with permission.
Yeah.
And I do remember that he does still speak on like the sightings. And that's about it.
Yeah, they said there was like over 100 sightings too in the months
100.
just prior to that.
Yep, and
Yeah,
it
over
was
100.
that's what makes this such a credible cryptid, in my eyes, in my perspective, in my genuine opinion, is that I think having a lot of corroborating people within the same location report the same thing without variations stands for something. Not gonna say
Right.
it stands for everything, as like, you know, who knows if it was a bird, who knows if he's an alien, but the idea is that like he lives forever deep in our hearts, and he's a crazy cryptid to me. Ryan, did you have anything other on research?
Yeah, I have what I mentioned at the start, I wouldn't say interview, but what Robert L. Smith, Dr. Robert L. Smith, kind of said about the stuff, and I'll just read it off here. Says Dr. Robert L. Smith, Associate Professor of Wildlife Biology in WVU's Division of Forestry, told Mason Sheriff George Johnson at Point Pleasant he believes the thing which has been frightening people in the Point Pleasant area since Tuesday, or whenever the incident happened, is a large bird which stops off while migrating south. From all descriptions I have read about this thing, it perfectly matches the sandhill cranes, said the professor. Definitely believe that's what everyone is saying. And so I decided to kind of like, start looking up as I was like reading through like his report on it, and I can definitely see like a lot of like why he would believe this, and now I believe that's what everyone was saying. It says that the sandhill crane can stand at an average of 5 feet and has a gray plumage. A feature of its appearance is a bright red flesh area around each eye. It has an average wingspan of about 7 feet, and like that honestly sounds a lot like what the Mothman is, just, you know, maybe like a foot or two shorter, and the wingspan is like a foot or two shorter. But like, you know, if someone's panicking, that's probably what they're seeing, because he says that the skin around the face, if someone like shines their light on, example, can look like red glowing eyes, and it's pretty big red glowing eyes at that. And like if it's standing up with like its wings out a little bit, it's probably going to look like someone with a trench coat, as that one lady from the O'Hare incident said. Like, it's, to me, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what this is.
Right. So I got a new theory then. It was actually a bird that stole that bolt holding it up that collapsed the Silver Bridge. We need to arrest all sandhill cranes immediately.
Yes.
It was an inside job. They were just slowly pecking away at it over the
The bird
years.
caused 9/11. You heard it here first on A Delve Deeper. I'm just saying, if Mothman was there during the tsunami, he was the one causing the waves. He caused everything else there. I can't imagine another different thing like that. One of the craziest things, like I said, is that I tend to lean more towards the bird theory more than anything. I think it's just more likely. And I love Mothman. Don't get me wrong. Mothman, don't come after me. Mothman's one of my favorite cryptids. One of my favorite creatures in all of media and everything. He's fucking awesome. I love the way he looks. I love the way that the town has gone through economic changes and has really profited and prospered from this. Like I said, it's so great that stories
so folks,
like this,
if you would like your economy to get better, just make up a cryptid, and everyone you know needs to corroborate that story, and then boom, economy fixed.
There you go.
I'm gonna put out some ideas out there. Hit me up for some trademark stuff. Crabman,
Crabman, that's a good one.
Octopus Man. Let's see, and Snake Man.
Just start naming stuff.
Yeah. Just whatever the animal is, just hit me up, and, you know, we'll come to a business deal.
I'm just saying, man, it gets crazy. It gets crazy, all these theories, man. And I absolutely love the actual, just, I don't know, the way he looks, the way he feels in my heart, how caked up he is and his people. Who knows? I think donate to your local Mothman Child Foundation. Donation box is located directly between Ass Cheek 1 and Ass Cheek 2. And
all right, I'm gonna get a whiteboard, and we're gonna keep score of how caked up each cryptid is, and we'll get a list by the end of this.
I think Mothman is probably number 1. Sasquatch, I've heard,
Might
is
be.
pretty up there.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it would have to be the Yeti, because I mean, like, you're doing a lot of mountain climbing. You're going to be using those glutes a lot, just squatting. You know, he has to build up that fat before wintertime too, so he can like stay warm. So he's going to be like triple caked up minimum.
All right.
I'm just saying,
I'll let you guys know by the end of this. I'm not kidding. I'm gonna get a whiteboard and do that. It'll be funny.
It's gonna be Nate's caked up whiteboard. He's gonna have his wife come in. She's like, "What the fuck is this, dude?" And you're like, "Listen, it's for research purposes, okay?"
I'm a damn scientist. No,
we're into sciences here. We are delving deeper.
Why is one of the
cake sizes?
Why is one of the sites you have listed for research the Rule 34 site?
Listen, I can explain. It was research purposes. It's called hentai, and it's hard.
And it's what started World War II. No, just
apparently, Mothman did so many things. I think he's evil, guys. Evil, 100% evil.
I think he's evil.
But that's gonna be it for us here at A Delve Deeper. Thank you, Ryan, for coming on here. It was fun. Really fun to have you on here, and Nate, of course, thank you for being here with me today. This is a great show.
It was. Thanks for having me. Sorry I got lost in the middle for a second there. My internet went out for a brief second, came right back on. So.
Oh, you're good, man. No worries.
Don't worry. We got you covered. But yeah, thanks for having me, and maybe I'll hop on a little bit more if my schedule permits it. Love to dispute these things.
They get pretty interesting, man. And like I said, the Wendigo, Nate, you're gonna have to put him last. He's bony, scrawny. Don't imagine there's any cake there. The
right,
cake
yeah, it's inverted already. At that point.
Inverse, the negative points.
Okay, so our scale needs to be number 1 at Wendigo to a number 10 Yeti. It's got to be somewhere in between there.
Oh man, come on, Mothman's gotta be 10 out of 10, bro. Yeah, you seen that statue?
Yeah, but he flies a lot.
That's a new pickup line right there. Just, hey girl, on a scale from Wendigo to Mothman, how caked up are you?
Well, hey, I'm just saying, if he's flying with the back end, that's pure ass muscles, dude. I feel like
the flapping was actually just cheeks clapping.
Yeah, it's just glutes. That's pure glutes, man.
That's where he stores his wings. They just unfold from the ass.
Yeah. But thanks everybody for listening. We'll be back here again next week. And I look forward to another episode of A Delve Deeper. And remember, everybody, that we're here for all things dark, paranormal, and haunting. And goodbye, everyone.
Peace.
Bye.